I would encourage you guys to subscribe to this podcast. Thank you. Bye bye.
Hello there, you're welcome to His God TV. If today is your first time of watching our videos, we would like to remind you to subscribe to our channel. If you have already subscribed, we thank you for your support. So in today's discussion, we are going to look at Elijah's Mount Carmel contest, which falls under the supremacy of God. In our previous video or lesson before this, for which is a continuation of this one, we did talk about Ahab's marriage with Jezebel, and we discussed the effect, how that marriage affected both the religious and social life of the people of Israel. And so today we are going to look at a continuation of that story. So in case you have not watched that video, I would include a link in the description under this video, Ahab's marriage with Jezebel and its consequences on the life of on the religious and political life of Israel, in the description under this video, so that you can go and watch that too as well, because that is a continuation of the Mount Carmel contest. So today our Bible text will be taken from 1Kings chapter 18, verse 1 to 46. We will take our time to read all through from 18, verse 1 to 46, and really examine the Carmel contest, the Mount Carmel contest. What was it about? And all of that. Good. So let's begin with our lesson objectives. So by the end of this lesson, our first objective is for you to be able to discuss the factors that led to the pronouncement of drought on Israel. You recall, if you happen to have watched our previous lesson, Elijah, we were told, according to the Bible, pronounced a 3-year drought on the people of Israel because of the activities of Jezebel, the king's wife. And if you want to know all that the king's wife did in Israel, you can visit that video, which I said I have included the link in the description so that you can watch that. So we will look at the factors that led to the pronouncement of drought on Israel. And then also, you should be able to analyze the Mount Carmel episode and lessons derived from it. So what are some of the lessons derived from the Mount Carmel episode? You should be able to also analyze the whole context and the lessons that can be learned from that. So basically, that is what we will be concerning ourselves with. And so let's begin with the introduction. We are all aware that Israel practiced monotheism, whereby only Yahweh was their God. So Yahweh was the only God that the people of Israel worshipped, and that is what we mean by monotheism. But so they entered into a covenant agreement with Yahweh on Mount Sinai to worship only Yahweh. Therefore, the institution of kingship was sacred, because the king was a servant of God to take care of God's people. And so the king stood in place of God to take care of his people. And in this case, we are referring to Ahab. Now, Ahab then succeeded his father, who was called Omri. So Ahab, of course, succeeded his father Omri, and he ruled from Samaria for 22 years. So Ahab ruled for 22 years. And then he married a certain woman, Jezebel. He was the daughter of Baal of Sidon, that's Phoenicia. Okay, so Jezebel came from Sidon. And as I have already indicated, the marriage between Ahab and Jezebel affected both the religious as well as social, moral, and even the political life of Israel. And so all these aspects of the people's life were affected because of the marriage between Ahab and Jezebel. And we did look at the activities of Jezebel and how it affected Israel in our previous lesson. So once again, I would like to remind you to go back and watch that video. Now, let's try and recall some of the things that we talked about in that video. So because of the activities of Jezebel, which led to a religious tension, one of the most prominent things that Jezebel did was the introduction of Baalism into Israel. And so it brought about some sort of religious tension between the worship of Yahweh and also the worship of Baal. Okay, and so because of that, Elijah, who was a prophet of Yahweh, came into the scene and then pronounced a drought for 3 years. And after that drought, after the 3 years, he came back to the king Ahab and threw a challenge, because Ahab was also supporting his wife Jezebel. So he threw a challenge that they should have that challenge, whether the people should worship Baal or should worship Yahweh. And that's the challenge that we are going to look at today. So let's open our Bibles to 1Kings and read about the contest and see who won for the context. Okay, so let's begin with our Bible reading. And we are reading 1Kings chapter 18, verse 1 to 46. And so it's going to be a very long Bible reading, but I'll try and make it snappy. Good. So let's begin. After many days, the word of the Lord came to Elijah in the third year, saying, Go, show yourself to Ahab, and I will send rain upon the earth. So you recall that Elijah had already pronounced drought on the people of Israel as a result of the activities of Jezebel with regards to the religious life of Israel. And so for 3 years now, there has not been rain. And so after the third year, God instructed Elijah to go and show himself to Ahab. So let's see what happened. So Elijah went to show himself to Ahab. Now the famine was severe in Samaria, and that is in the northern kingdom, Israel. And Ahab called Obadiah, who was over the household. Now Obadiah revered the Lord greatly. And when Jezebel cut off the prophets of the Lord, Obadiah took 100 prophets and hid them by 50s in a cave and fed them with bread and water. Now, this was the role that Obadiah played in the whole saga with regards to Jezebel, who was killing the prophets of Yahweh. And Obadiah hid 100 of these prophets, in caves. And so when the famine was very severe, Ahab called Obadiah and then instructed him to go and look for water. So let's hear what Ahab told Obadiah. And Ahab said to Obadiah, Go through the land to all the springs of water and to all the valleys. Perhaps we may find grass and save the horses and mules alive and not lose some of the animals. So, the famine was severe, as already indicated by the Bible, and therefore they needed food, grass and other food items for their horses, their animals, lest they will lose all of them. So they divided the land between them to pass through it. Ahab went in one direction by himself, and Obadiah went in another direction by himself. So they were looking for grass for the animals, so they had to divide themselves. While Ahab took the other part, and then Obadiah also took the other part. Okay, and as Obadiah was on the way, behold, Elijah met him, and Obadiah recognized him and fell on his face and said, Is it you, my lord Elijah? And he answered him, It is I. Go, tell your lord, behold, Elijah is here. And he said, Wherein have I sinned, that you would give your servant unto the hand of Ahab to kill me? So Obadiah was asking a question. When he met Elijah, Elijah instructed him to go and tell the king that he had seen him, that's Elijah. But Obadiah felt that Elijah was not stable. Elijah would always, Elijah has not been seen for the past 3 years. And so if he tells you, go and tell the king that I'm here, and you come and he's not there. So Obadiah feared, and so he asked, what have I done to the Lord that you want the king to kill me? And as the Lord your God lives, there is no nation or kingdom, whether my Lord has not sent to seek you. And when they would say, he is not here, he will take an oath of the king of the kingdom or nation that they had not found you. So he feared that if he goes to tell the king and Elijah runs away, his life was going to be in danger. And that is what he was telling Elijah over there. Now verse 11, and now you say, go tell your Lord, behold, Elijah is here. And as soon as I have gone from you, the Spirit of the Lord will carry you whither I know not. And so, when I come and tell Ahab, and he cannot find you, he will kill me, although I, your servant, have revered the Lord from my youth. So he's telling him his fear that if I go and tell the king, by the time I come, the Spirit of the Lord might have taken you away. And I am not ready for that, because the king might swear and kill me. Verse 13, has it not been told, my Lord, what I did when Jezebel killed the prophets of the Lord? How I hid 100 men of the lost prophets by 50s in a cave and fed them with bread and water. So he's still trying to let Elijah know that this errand that you are sending me, I know that I'll not come and meet you. You just want me to die. And this is what I have done for the prophets of Yahweh, for the prophets of God. I hid 100 of them when Jezebel was chasing them to kill them. And so Obadiah was just trying to somehow persuade Elijah, I believe, not to send him. And now you say, go tell your Lord, behold, Elijah is here, and he will kill me. And Elijah said, so let's take a look at Elijah's response. And Elijah said, verse 15, as the Lord of hosts lives, before whom I stand, I will surely show myself to him today. So Obadiah went to meet Ahab and told him, and Ahab went to meet Elijah. So Obadiah, at this point, believed what Elijah said. And so I'm sure that he went ahead to go and inform Ahab that he had seen Elijah. So verse 17, when Ahab saw Elijah, Ahab said to him, is it you, you troubler of Israel? And he answered, I have not troubled Israel, but you have, and your father's house, because you have forsaken the commandments of the Lord and followed the Baals. So you see, I don't know what you make of this, but Ahab accused Elijah of being a troubler of Israel. Do you think that Elijah was really the troubler of Israel? Probably Ahab was thinking that you cursed the land, and you said that for 3 years there wouldn't be any rain. So then you are the troubler. But Elijah refused that allegation and said that I have not troubled Israel, but you and your fathers have troubled what? Israel. So which among these two people do you think troubled Israel? Is it Ahab or Elijah? Now you can share your ideas in the comment section. Good, let's move on to verse 19. Now therefore send and gather all. So this is where the Mount Carmel contest comes in here. Now because of that religious tension which we had already indicated in our former lesson, that religious tension as to which of these gods should the people of Israel worship, is it Baal or Yahweh? Because of this tension, there needed to be a contest that would show the true God and which God the people of Israel should worship. And don't forget, at this period, I have already told you that at this period, magic or miracle, as we may call it, was something very important. It was something very, very key to people's acceptance of a particular God. And so there had to be some sort of miracle or magic being performed by that God. And in that case, people will not have anything, no option than to worship that God. And so Elijah threw out this challenge on Mount Carmel, a certain mountain called Mount Carmel. And he said that he said, therefore send and gather of all Israel to me at Mount Carmel. So everybody in Israel should meet Elijah, as he's saying, on Mount Carmel. And the 450 prophets of Baal and the 400 prophets of Asherah who eat at Jezebel's table. So call everybody in Israel, including the 400 prophets, 450 prophets, 450 prophets of Baal, and also the 400 of course, prophets of Asherah. So in all, 850 prophets of Jezebel. Bring them to Mount Carmel. This is what this is what Elijah told Ahab to go and inform the people. Now 20. So Ahab sent to all the people of Israel and gathered the prophets together at Mount Carmel. So Ahab did as Elijah had told him. And well, I asked that question when we are done. 21. And Elijah came near to all the people and said, how long will you? So now all of them have gathered, including the 850 prophets of Baal. They've all gathered on Mount Carmel, including the people of Israel. All of these people have gathered. So you can imagine the multitude of crowd over there. Then Elijah poses a question to all the people who had gathered. He said, how long will you go limping with two different opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him. But if Baal, then follow him. And the people did not answer him a word. I believe that at this point, the people were into what is known as religious syncretism. Syncretism in the sense that they were as if they were worshiping Baal, as if they were also, of course, worshiping Yahweh. And so they had not taken stand. Now, 22. Then Elijah said to the people, even I only am left a prophet of the Lord, but Baal's prophets are 450 men. So let's look at 23. Now, this is the contest. This is what the challenge Elijah throws at them. It's nice. So in 22, he's saying that I am the only prophet here. I am only one prophet of the Lord. Now, we have here 450 Baal prophets. Now, let two bulls, of course, pay attention to this here. Verse 23. Let two bulls be given to us, and let them choose one bull for themselves, and cut it in pieces and lay it on the wood, but put no fire to it. And I will prepare the other bull and lay it on the wood and put no fire to it. So the challenge or the contest is that we are going to be given two bulls, one for each. You take one, I take one. And then we cut the bulls into pieces. And then we place or we lay the bull on the wood. We don't add any fire. So it's as if let us sacrifice to our God. That is what Elijah meant. Let us sacrifice to our God and see whose sacrifice would be accepted. But in this sacrifice, after killing the bull and putting it or laying it on the wood, we are not going to add fire to it. Now, 24. And you call on the name of your God, and I will call on the name of the Lord. And the God who answers by fire, he is God. And all the people answered, it is well spoken. So we are not going to add fire to this sacrifice, but we expect that God should bring down fire to consume the bull. Do you get the challenge over there? 25. Then Elijah said to the prophets of Baal, choose for yourself one bull and prepare it first. For you are many, and call on the name of your God. Put no fire to it. Fantastic. So Elijah gave them the benefit of the doubt. He told them to begin with the challenge because they were many, 450. So begin with your challenge. So let's see what the prophets of Baal did. 26. And they took the bull which was given to them, and they prepared it and called on the name of Baal from morning till noon. Underline this if the Bible is yours. From morning till noon, they call on the name of the Lord, on the name of Baal, saying, O Baal, answer us. But there was no voice, and no one answered, and they limped about the altar which they had made. So from noon from morning till noon, the Baal prophets, had no response from their God. Let's take a look at 27. And at noon, Elijah mocked them. So from morning till noon, or definitely Elijah will mock them at noon, saying, "Cry aloud, for he is a God. Either he's musing, or he has gone aside, or he is on a journey, or perhaps he is asleep and must be awaked." So Elijah was just trying to mock at the prophets of Baal. That cry out loud, shout louder, continue to chant, because probably your God is on a journey. Let's take a look at 28. And they cried out loud and cut themselves after their custom with swords and lances until the blood gushed out upon them. So it was some sort of a ritual. They cut a part of their body and sprinkled the blood probably on the bull, thinking that would work. 29. And as midday passed, they raved on until the time of the offering of the oblation. But there was no voice. No one answered. No one heeded. Nobody responded to the prophets of Baal. That's very, 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 very shame. Now 30. Then Elijah said to all the people, "Come near to me." And all the people came to him, and he repaired the altar of the Lord that had been thrown down. So at this point, even the altar that was prepared for God had been destroyed. And you also recall that Jezebel or Ahab, Jezebel with the aid of Ahab, erected altars for Baal and Asherah and even built a house. So at this point, the altar of the Lord, which was used for sacrifice, had even been destroyed. Now, Elijah then repaired it again. Now, 31. Elijah took 12 stones according to the number of the tribes of the sons of Jacob, to whom the word of the Lord came, saying, "Israel shall be your name." So Elijah took 12 stones to repair the altar. And the Bible says these 12 stones represented the 12 tribes of Israel. Don't forget, these 12 tribes of Israel were the children of Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel. Now 32. And with the stones he built an altar in the name of the Lord, and he made a trench about the altar as great as would contain 2 measures of seeds. And he put the wood in order and cut the bull in pieces and laid it on the wood. And he said, fill 4 jars with water. Fill 4 jars with water and pour it on the burnt offering and on the wood. So Elijah, somebody will say Elijah is too no. So you see, Elijah's own, he erects the altar with the stones. Now he instructs them to dig a trench around the altar and pour 4 jars of water. So fill 1 jar, 2 jar, 3 jars, 4 jar. Each jar should be full of water. Pour it on the wood and in the trench. So you can imagine Elijah went to an extent to prove that this God is super, because these woods which are going to be lightened are all wet. Let's look at 34. And he said, do it a second time. And they did it a second time. And he said, do it a third time. And they did it a third time. So the 4 jars of water were poured on the wood. How many times? 3 times. 3 times. First 4 jars, brah, on the wood. The second 4 jars, brah, on the wood. Third 4 jars, brah, on the wood. And the water ran round about the altar and filled the trench also with water. So the trench was also filled with water. And at the time of the offering of the oblation, Elijah the prophet came near and said, O Lord, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, let it be known this day that thou art God in Israel, and that I am thy servant, and I have done all these things at thy word. So this was the simple prayer that Elijah prayed. 37, answer me, O Lord, answer me, that this people may know that thy, O Lord, thy God, and that thou hast turned their hearts back. 38. Then, so this was a simple prayer that Elijah prayed. Then 38 said, then a fire of the Lord fell and consumed the burnt offering and the wood and the stones and the dust, and licked up the water that was in the trench. So the wood, the wet wood, the trenches, the dust, everything, fire. Don't forget, this water was not a kerosene or was a petrol, mere water, but it was able to light, And all the people saw it, and they fell on their faces, and they said, the Lord, he is God. The Lord, he is God. And this statement is the motto of my church, Calvary Life Chapel. It says, the Lord, he is God, and the Lord, he is God. Indeed, he is God. Now, verse 40. Then Elijah said to them, seize the prophets of Baal, let no one of them escape. And they seized them, and Elijah brought them down to the brook Kishon and killed them there. So they can ask you in the objective question, at which place did Elijah kill all the prophets of Baal? It was at the brook of Kishon. Okay, good. Now 41. And Elijah said to Ahab, go up, eat and drink, for there is a sound of a rushing of rain. So when after the contest, Elijah had to instruct Ahab to go up and drink and eat, because it was about to rain after 3 years. Let's look at 42. So Ahab went up to eat and to drink, and Elijah went up to the top of Mount Carmel, and he bowed himself down upon the earth and put his face between his knees. And he said to his servant, go up now, look towards the sea. And he went up and looked, and he said, there is nothing. And he said, go again 7 times. And at the 7th time he said, behold, a little cloud like a man's hand is rising out of the sea. And he said, go up, say to Ahab, prepare your chariots and go down, lest the rain stop you. So Ahab was still at the place, Mount Carmel. And so he instructed his servants to go in there and inform Ahab that the rain was about to fall, and so they should run away. And in a little while, the heavens grew black with clouds and wind, and there was a great wind, and Ahab rode and went to Jezebel. And the hand of the Lord was on Elijah, and he gathered up his loins and ran before Ahab to the entrance of Jezreel. So, very interesting context we have read about or learned today. So basically, this was the Mount Carmel context. And so if you are asked anywhere to describe the Mount Carmel context between the prophets of Baal and Asherah and Elijah, the prophets of Yahweh, I believe you will be able to do that. Good. So let's go back to the slides and look at the summary so that you can write something if you want to. All right. Okay, so now let's take a look at the summary of the text that we just read about the Mount Carmel contest between Elijah and the prophets of Baal. So this is just a summary of the whole passage from 1 to 46 that we just read about. So after Jezebel's attempt to wipe out Yahwehism, Elijah proposed a contest on Mount Carmel, and we saw that in the Bible. And the context was to determine whether God of Israel or Baal was supreme. So this was the aim of the contest. Mind you, every contest has an aim. Every contest has an objective to achieve. And the objective of the Mount Carmel contest was to determine whether Israel God, for that's Yahweh, or Baal, was supreme, which of them was supreme. And Ahab accepted the contest. I don't know why Ahab was behaving that way, because it looks as if he was convinced that Baal was good to Yahweh, and so he allowed his wife to propagate and do all the evil that he was doing. By accepting this contest, it seems as if Ahab now was willing to accept the truth as to, okay, so now let's, do it and let's see. So somehow his behavior was somehow very, very, confusing right there. Because as a king, you should know the importance of some of these things. So Jezebel, of course, gathered 450 prophets of Baal, which Elijah had requested. We saw that in the Bible. And again, 400 prophets of Asherah on Mount Carmel. So in all, about 850 prophets from Jezebel's side were to meet Elijah, which we saw there, only one prophet from that of Yahweh. Now, Elijah proposed that they take two bulls, all right? They take two bulls, each one for himself. So he allocated one for himself. We saw it over there, and one for the prophet of Baal, all right? And each party was to sacrifice the bull without fire. Instead, pray for fire from their God. So the contest was all about take the bull, sacrifice, kill the bull, put it on a prepared altar. However, don't add fire to it. Pray and let fire come down to consume the, of course, sacrifice. And that is what Elijah proposed. And the prophets of Baal accepted the contest. And so they were the ones who started by sacrificing first one of the bull, and they prayed fervently the whole day, and they were disappointed, which we saw in the Bible, that they were disappointed because Baal did not respond. And it even got to a time where we also saw in the readings that Elijah was even mocking at them, saying that probably he was asleep. Let's take a look at more of the summary. Now, during Elijah's turn, he built an altar. So when Baal failed, Elijah built an altar with 12 stones, and then he poured water on the sacrifice and the wood and prayed simply and earnestly. Elijah's prayer was answered. Now, you recall, even if you look at how Elijah's altar and sacrifice was prepared, that alone should tell you that Yahweh was indeed the true God and is indeed the true God. Then Elijah for the killing of the prophets of Baal at Brookshire. So after Elijah's own succeeded, and we all saw how the Lord responded with fire. So when Elijah's own succeeded, he ordered that the prophets of Baal be killed. And where were they killed? They were killed at the Brook Kishon. Bear in mind, because they can ask you in the objective test, Brook Kishon. Good. Now, soon after the contest, there was rain in Israel. We also saw that after the contest, Elijah sent his servant to go and check if there was rainfall or the nature of the cloud. Of the cloud, and there was rain right after that. Okay, good. So this is something for us to note better. It says what? Elijah means Yahweh is my God, and Jezebel means where is the prince of Baal. It's quite interesting that sometimes some of the names in the Bible really portrays their character. Elijah saying Yahweh is my God because Yahweh answered his prayer. So the meaning of Elijah, they can ask you in the objectives, the meaning of Elijah means Yahweh is my God. And take a look at the meaning of Jezebel. Jezebel was actually looking for Baal because his prophets were looking for Baal to help them. And so Jezebel also means where is the prince Baal. So it's quite interesting because sometimes, but that is the meaning of these two names. Bear in mind, when you're asked anywhere, you should not forget that. Now let's go in there and look at some of the moral lessons that can be learned from the Mount Carmel contest. One of them is that God is powerful. we saw the power of God being manifested on Mount Carmel, sending fire to consume the bulls. Again, God punishes sin, and so the prophets of Baal were punished by Elijah. The potency of God cannot be underestimated, so you cannot underestimate the ability and potency of God, as Jezebel and the prophets of Baal did. And even Ahab also underestimated the potency of God, and so probably that made him to call for some sort of a contest, or even agree to the contest. God cares for his people. God will always care for his people with regards to the people of Israel. And then God is in control of the universe. God controls all the universe. And these are some of the lessons that can be learned from the Mount Carmel contest. So this is a try work, try your hand on this work, and let's meet some other time with a very interesting topic. If you have any question, you can write it at the comment section. If you have any topic to CRS, history, English language, social studies, you can add it for us to look at it for you. Have a nice day, and bye-bye.